Good afternoon, everyone. Could turn that off, right? That's how it works. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to convene today's meeting of the Labor Committee on this Thursday, February 2nd. I would ask at this time if there are any remarks from my co-chair, Senator Kushner. Okay, then I'll call on Senator Sampson and Representative Ackert.
No comment. Get to work.
All right. I do not. Oh, Senator Kushner.
Thank you. I am here. And I'm unfortunately I have to be on Zoom today, but I'm anxious for this meeting to get started and look forward to a productive meeting. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Senator. I do not see Senator Cabrera, Representative Wilson, so we will move forward. At this time, we will go to item 3 on our agenda, concepts to be raised. We have 4 concepts to be raised this afternoon. I'd like to entertain a motion to raise items 1 through 4 on our agenda by voice vote.
Rep. Hughes, so
Second.
Moved by Rep. Hughes, seconded by Representative Ackert. Just make sure. Okay, we have items 1 through 4. I will call on each of them individually. Item 1, an act concerning wage theft responsibility. Item 2, an act concerning including residential construction under existing prevailing wage requirements. Item 3, an act concerning workers' compensation and portal-to-portal coverage for telecommunications. And item 4, an act concerning unemployment benefits for adjunct faculty. Any discussion? Representative Ackert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if you could briefly describe these, I know I've seen item 4 multiple times through because I was on higher ed, but if you could indulge the new members, just a brief discussion of each of these, would be greatly appreciated.
Greatly appreciated. Senator Kushner, I wanted to call on you. I know you wanted to speak to these specific concepts.
Yes, thank you. It's just taking me a minute to get unmuted as we're going through these. So on the unemployment for adjunct faculty, this is an issue that we would like to have an opportunity to address, because we know that adjunct faculty, part-time faculty at our universities often do not get hired back in the fall, and now they're getting they're basically being laid off in the spring, but they can't apply for unemployment until the fall. So they lose several months of unemployment when they're not rehired in the fall. So it's a matter of concern and something we need to figure out and see how we could address that. So hopefully we can move that bill forward. On the second, I'm sorry, Representative Sanchez, could you?
Sure. Let me just go one at a time. You did item number 4. We'll start with item number 1, which was an act concerning wage theft responsibility.
Thank you. That bill is a bill that would specifically deal with issues that we've had from some of our construction trade workers, particularly our carpenters, when they're not paid by a contractor or a subcontractor. Clearly, the contractor is responsible, but it's not always clear that there is a responsibility of the subcontractor or the broker that doesn't pay them.
Item number 2, Senator, was, I'm sorry.
I don't know how we're proceeding.
No, I apologize. You had a question.
I have a question on number 1.
Yes, sir. Senator Sampson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, no, we're still getting used to the process and how we go through these agendas these days. I just for the committee's edification, I would strongly suggest we go back to the old way of doing things, where we discuss each item and add them to a consent calendar one by one, or roll call them, and then at the end we have a consent calendar to work with. But I do understand that we're working only with concepts, and we want to make it as quick as possible. The first item, an act concerning wage theft responsibility. I'd just like to ask, Mr. Chairman, if you know whether or not this is a repeat of the 2022 bill. It was House Bill 5439, which came out of this committee. My concern with that bill was that it made contractors liable for the actions of subcontractors, which they may or may not know about. So I'm just curious to know if it's the same bill or any changes will be made to it based on that.
Sure. I do not have that answer, so I'd like to defer to LCOs if that's possible, Senator.
Actually, I think, the LCO will draft the bill according to our desire. I think that the intention is to make sure that we have an ability to really enforce subcontractors and contractors to pay wages in accordance with the law. And I think part of the problem regarding whether the responsibility lies with the contractor or the subcontractor is that a contractor can always just stop using that subcontractor, but then the workers still do not receive the compensation that they were owed because the subcontractors basically disappear. So we have to have a better system. Will the bill be exact like last year's bill? I think we'll discuss that with LCO and drafting. And Senator Sampson, I'd be happy to, we can certainly have conversations over the next week or so before that bill is drafted. If you'd like, if you have specific objections, we'd certainly be happy to hear them.
Senator Sampson?
Thank you. I appreciate that answer, Madam Chairman. I would just suggest that you mentioned, according to the law. Well, the current law makes the responsible party at fault and responsible to whoever they are delinquent with. And that's the way it ought to be in my mind. So if we're going to have a bill that effectively makes a contractor responsible for a subcontractor, that's making one person responsible for the actions of another. And I do understand that sometimes there is an innocent party that's involved, but I don't think that you can just go looking for anyone else involved in the transaction, basically because they have deep pockets to be the source of a result. So I just want to give you a heads up that I am against that concept, and we should find ways to police these subcontractors better if that's the actual problem. And that's just my 2 cents on it. And hopefully we can come up with a solution that improves upon what we attempted last year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions? I apologize for. Representative Weir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think as we discuss this further, I would be, as both having run as being a general contractor and also having been a subcontractor and an employee, there, in any transaction, there is an inherent risk. There's a certain amount of risk that each party takes in entering into the transaction. And so, I think for instance, where we've had subcontractors who have not performed, we've hired a subcontractor to do a job and their employees, and the subcontractor causes damage, doesn't perform the job, has to be replaced. Now to be responsible for paying and bringing in a new party, as well as paying the employees of the subcontractor, that really puts an onus of responsibility on the general contractor that I don't think they signed up for. So a concept like that, I'm very concerned with, and would like to know more about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. The next item was an act concerning including residential construction under existing prevailing wage requirements. Questions?
I believe, just for clarification, I believe this is not requiring residential construction to be produced only by prevailing wage. It is codifying the rates, I believe, that we do for commercial prevailing wage standards. Is that what you believe this legislation does?
Senator Kushner?
Representative, yes, thank you. Yes, that is correct. We did enact, last year, we passed this bill to codify prevailing wage. It was passed by the legislature, and it only addressed commercial. It did not address residential. So this bill would seek to include residential codification of prevailing wage for residential construction as well.
Representative Acker.
And so the follow-up is rate structure, not what facilities actually would be a prevailing wage project then, correct?
Correct.
Representative Yakarino.
Just for clarification, so if I'm building my own home, I'm my own contractor, couldn't I hire anybody I want? I mean, what, this has nothing to do with that, right? No, I could pay them whatever I want, if it's $1 million or $1,000, it's my choice, just for clarification. So it will not apply to a personal, a residential home, but I see the word residential.
Senator Kushner.
I believe that, obviously we'll draft the bill and there will be testimony taken on it and we'll take everything into consideration. But as was stated previously, I believe that this is specifically to address codification of existing prevailing wage processes. So it's not expanding upon them, but it is an issue we addressed very well last year on the commercial side so that there wasn't the long delay that we had previously in getting those rates established so that for prevailing wage projects, for projects that fall under prevailing wage, that everyone knows what the rate is in a timely basis. And, I just had a conversation with a contractor today that, stressed how important it is when they're doing a commercial project to have made that codification. There's still some issues they have with the timeliness of it, which hopefully we can make sure that we're doing it right, meaning the state, and that we can get everybody on the same page. But for the contractors, this is really helpful as well.
Representative.
I appreciate that answer, but again, if it's a residential home or personal property, commercial is one thing, municipal is one thing, residential, it's really up to the homeowner. It should not be up to the government, anybody else. I'm very clear on that, I think. Nobody should tell a homeowner what they should pay and what they shouldn't pay. That's just going to drive the cost up. Like, am I wrong? Because I think that's what I'm hearing for codification. Thank you.
Representative Acker.
Let me try and Senator Kushner agree or not. This isn't telling anybody what jobs prevailing wage applies to. We have to codify rates to meet the standards for the state of Connecticut for what prevailing wage rates are and benefit packages are, and that's approved. This is doing the same thing just for the rate. So when I, as a bidder, go to look at a project, I look at the bid rate. So in other words, they say, here's a spec package and here's the rates you have to pay your employees to bid on that project. So it could be a federally funded senior housing plan, and that falls under prevailing wage. And those rates are set. And it just, I believe, and we'll hear it in the public hearing, but I believe this just says, here's the rates for that project, not which projects are prevailing wage. So your home, your neighbor's subdivision, your big, whatever project may be going in your town, those are on standard contractors bidding those work. But if it's a prevailing wage project from, federal funding or state funding, then those rates would apply.
I think I'm waiting for the chair. Could I respond?
Representative.
I think I got clarification. Basically, if it's an apartment complex that residents are going to live in, or it's senior housing that residents are going to live in, then you would follow those standards. If it's a personal home, it's like a lot of my buddies are subcontractors and contractors. They're very fair, but they would never be able to follow, they build houses, they go to the next job. I think this would not apply to them, if I'm correct. I think I'm right. It's like apartment homes where people are going to live.
Representative Sanchez, I keep doing that to you. I just want, I was just being careful, Representative, in my response, that this bill would not change anything with regard to which projects, whether they be an individual's project or a federally funded or state funded or municipal. This bill does not address expanding who is required to adhere to our state's prevailing wage laws. This bill is about the codification of those rates, as I believe I agree with Representative Ackert's description of how those apply. So for the good senator, the good representative's concerns, we are not expanding when a project becomes a prevailing wage project. That's not part of this bill. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of raising items,
Mr. Chairman, I thought we were doing one by one.
We skipped, we didn't vote.
we did four first.
I understand. We haven't voted on anything. You were just gonna make a motion to vote on all of them.
Correct.
Yes, and I do have one final statement.
I apologize. Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got confused about what we were, the process we were following. I just want to make a general statement about items 1 through 4 and the whole agenda, to be honest. And that's simply the usual caveat that today we're just voting on whether these items should be raised for a public hearing. And it's very possible that someone might vote in favor of that hearing on any number of these items. Certainly, some of these bills I don't foresee that I'm going to support at the end of the day. But we're only voting to have a hearing, not whether or not we're going to vote for the final product. And I just wanted to have that on the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. My apologies again. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of raising items 1 through 4, please signify by saying aye. Sorry.
Aye.
I
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? The motion carries. At this time, I'd like to move to item 4 on the agenda. There are 14 bills before us to be reserved for a subject matter public hearing. I would like to entertain a motion to reserve items 5 through 14 on our agenda. I apologize. To reserve items 5 through 12, 14, and 16 on our agenda by voice vote.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Representative Hughes, seconded by Representative Ackert. So as I would call on the bills individually, Senate Bill 151, an act establishing a full employment trust fund. Senate Bill 489, an act limiting the days an employer can mandate an employee to work. Senate Bill 831, an act concerning amusement parks and the employment of individuals at least 14 years of age. House Bill 5033, an act concerning compensation of incarcerated individuals. House Bill 5464, an act concerning complaints against state and municipal employees. House Bill 5856, an act concerning state marshals' health benefits. House Bill 5859, an act concerning employment of individuals in agricultural labor. House Bill 6272, an act concerning workers' compensation, death benefits, and the cost of living and inflation rates. House Bill 6279, an act concerning reporting requirements of the Labor Department and the unemployed armed force members subsidized training and employment program. House Bill 6367, an act concerning temporary employment agencies and individuals without social security numbers. And how, I apologize, my sincere apologies. And the last one was House Bill 6362, an act concerning advanced energy companies and the workforce, change of reference to energy and technology. Is there any discussion? Senator Sampson.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to have discussion on the entire section? Or should we do these one at a time? How do you want to go about
My
that?
apologies. 1 second, sir.
Representative Sanchez, can we pause for a moment?
Yes, Senator Kushner. All right, we'll come back, and I will go to the first bill. That's appropriate, Senator.
Excuse me, Representative Sanchez. I'm sorry, I don't think you can see my hand was up.
I did not. Senator Kushner.
Thank you. I know I got a little confused during the reading of the bills that were being being proposed for a subject matter public hearing. And I know when you read off 63, 62 on the agenda, it says change of reference, but I believe there were conversations to move that from to not refer that, but to hold a subject matter hearing on that bill, since it does deal with strictly the workforce issues, not the energy and technology end. So I believe this was a proposed bill from Representative Muschinski, and there was discussion about keeping that in labor and holding a subject matter hearing. And I just wondered if you could clarify that.
That is the case, Senator. My apologies. So I just want to go back to that bill for the record. So proposed House Bill 6362, an act concerning advanced energy companies and the workforce, will remain in this committee for a subject matter public hearing. So at this time, thank you for that correction, Senator. So I will now go back to the first bill, which was Senate Bill 151, an act establishing a full employment trust fund. Any questions? A discussion, sorry. Senator Sampson.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate you taking these one by one, just because it is kind of difficult to keep my thoughts and notes straight, trying to discuss numerous bills at one time. Plus, I'm looking them up on my laptop so I can see the language. This first one, certainly a laudable goal to establish such a trust fund, and for the purposes mentioned, workforce housing, employment opportunities for disadvantaged youth, work study opportunities. Any one of us can be behind those things. But I guess I want to make a quick statement and then ask a question. The first statement I have really is that I think that the problem we have in this state is not so much that we do not have job opportunities. It's that I just looked on, I think, what is it called? Glassdoor, I think it's called. It said 47,000 job openings in the state of Connecticut. So there's no lack of job opportunities out there. And I think that even skilled job opportunities exist. It's that, the industries, manufacturing, for example, that provide these types of jobs have difficulty keeping people because we lose our employee workforce to other states. And that's because other states know that Connecticut has expensive taxes, expensive energy, and government policies that have prevented people from reaching their full potential. So it's easy picking if you own a manufacturing facility in South Carolina, for example, to start looking for your employees from Connecticut's skilled workforce. And I would just like to see us focused more on making Connecticut a more profitable and inviting place So people want to stay and work here, and that these companies have an easier time keeping their personnel. And so I'm totally behind this type of program, but I just see it going the way of so many other things where we're going to invest in a program like this, and we're going to give people the tools to earn a good living in a trade, and then ultimately they will move to greener pastures. And I would like to keep them here. I think that should be the goal. My one question on this item, reading through the language, it does not say in the bill language where the funding will come from. Is this supposed to be funded via the general fund, or is there some other mechanism that will ultimately provide the dollars for this? Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. I can certainly speak to the intent of the bill, and I know that Senator Kushner has had extensive conversations with Senator Winfield about this. Any remarks, Senator, regarding this bill?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think that it's specified in this bill because it's still an open question about how it would be funded. I do want to say that this is an issue that's been raised across the country of concern about how we would approach this. And we have not heard this bill in the past. And I think the reason why it's a proposed bill and we're asking for a subject matter hearing on it is so that we can ask those kinds of questions and get a lot more information from proponents of the bill during that process. So I appreciate the question. I think it's an important one, and hopefully we'll gain some knowledge of it and figure out how we do it. Obviously, funding a new program, as I've experienced in state government, it takes some time to figure out how best to do that in most cases. So, you know, we're really looking forward to getting the process started and understanding more about this concept as we, you know, get through the hearing process. So I don't think it's clarified. It's not that it's missing from there. I think it's not clear yet how we're going to do that.
Thank you, Senator. Any further discussion?
Comment, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I know that there are organizations out there that are working with the governor's office on this. So hopefully they'll make an opportunity to come in and discuss what they're already working on in this area without legislation. So maybe there's something that can help them along with legislation. But I think there's home builders and remodelers. I know we're involved with some discussions on some of the programs that they've been doing nationally. So I look forward to hearing the discussion on it.
Thank you, Representative. Any further questions? Okay. Now we'll move on to Senate Bill number 489, an act limiting the days an employer can mandate an employee to work. Any questions? I mean, any discussion? Sorry. Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm racing to get the file open on my computer so I can look at the language of the bill. As you mentioned, this item, an act limiting the days an employer can mandate an employee to work. I just find this to be a fascinating proposal, since we've had employment and employers in this state for quite a few years now, and this hasn't come up before. I guess my main concern with this is whether or not this is an outright prohibition on anyone working more than 6 consecutive days. And the reason for that is that you may have employees that want to work more than 6 consecutive days and employers that want them to. And as I've mentioned many times in this committee and elsewhere, this is a private contract between that employer and that employee. We've got no business interfering with what they want to do as adult free citizens. They should be able to decide for themselves. So the language of the bill appears to say that it just can't happen, that there is going to be no job that allows someone to work more than 6 consecutive days without a day off. And I think that's dangerous. And not that I necessarily would support something that would restrict an employer from mandating it to an unwilling employee, because in that case, that never happens either, because the employee always has the option of terminating the employment contract. If you don't like the job, you don't have to have it, kind of thing. But to me, if it is an outright prohibition that says that this can never happen, I think that is a very dangerous policy to enact. And I would love some clarification on that, on what is intended. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Discussion with the proponent of the bill. I know it's protected workers' work-life balance and mental health and preventing any further burnout. And I believe that's the intent of the bill. Senator Kushner, Senator Kushner, you have your hand up. I apologize. Senator
That's okay. Sure. Can you hear me? Because I'm still having trouble kind of managing my Zoom.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. I think that the good senator raises an important point, and one that we should take into consideration if we decide to draft this bill. Right now, we're hearing it for a subject matter hearing. There's no question that when it was raised, the issue was raised to us, and in conversations we've had with the proponent of the bill, that the intention was that no one could be forced to work more than 6 consecutive days. And I think that for the most part, that has been the intent of the underlying labor bills that we have. I just think that there may be an important fix so that that can't be forced on an employee. But certainly that's an important point that we'll want to take into consideration when drafting the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you for that answer, through you, Mr. Chairman. And again, I don't think that the bill is much better if it ends up being just a restriction on forcing of an employee either, since it is a voluntary contract. And if an employer wants to change the terms of an employment agreement, they can. Just like an employee can tell an employer, I'm only available at these hours. It's up to the employer whether they want to accept that change in the terms. We run a grave danger when we start to interfere with the terms that they're making on their own. The fact that they're perfectly capable of deciding they want to continue their business arrangement based on changes in circumstances does not require us to be involved. And I think that we run the risk of prohibiting things that people might agree to if they had their own choice to. So I just wanted to go on record. Thank you for acknowledging my concern, but I have a secondary concern, which is that I just don't think we should go down this road at all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to Senate Bill 831, an act concerning amusement parks and the employment of individuals at least 14 years of age. Discussion? Nothing on the screen. Okay, we'll move on to the next item. House Bill 5033, an act concerning compensation of incarcerated individuals. Discussion? Nothing. Okay. Next item is House Bill 5464, an act concerning complaints against state and municipal employees. Any discussion? Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill requires municipalities to inform other municipalities and states of accused wrongdoing of a state or municipal employee that resigned before finality of the complaint against them. I have mixed feelings about this. We all know what happened in West Haven, and I think it's very, very important for the public to be fully aware of such a circumstance. And therefore, as a result, the other municipal governments, the state government, et cetera. I would think a far easier solution would be to require that something like this becomes a public record. It has to be announced publicly or something like that. The fact that it has to be shared with other municipalities to me is far less important than the public becomes aware of it and then, raises it an issue in their own town or with the state. And I just thought I would get that on the record, but I do appreciate Representative Gonzalez bringing this concept forward because I do think it's important that we have enough oversight and that we do catch people that are engaged in nefarious behavior. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Any Representative Weir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I too share that, obviously we want to bring to light, we want to make sure that our government is transparent. I just draw a line of distinction with the word accused. And I want to make sure that, that there's some resolution before, that this is kind of brought to closure. Whether or not they resign, the employee resigns. They may have done something wrong and they may not. So I think, we want to be cautious about using the word accused and have that adjudicated or have that thoroughly investigated with an outcome. Thank you.
Understood, Representative. Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to House Bill 5856, an act concerning state marshals' health benefits. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on. House Bill 5859, an act concerning employment of individuals in agricultural labor. Discussion? Okay, move on. Pardon? Oh, okay. House Bill 6272, an act concerning workers' compensation, death benefits, and the cost of living inflation rates. Any discussion? Seeing none. House Bill 6279, an act concerning reporting requirements of the Labor Department and the Unemployment Armed Force Members Subsidized Training and Employment Program. Discussion? Seeing none. Next. And House Bill 6362, an act concerning advanced energy companies and the workforce. Discussion? Seeing none. Okay, we will move on to. We will move, onto a voice vote. Okay. We are correct about that. Yep. LCO, would you please read back the lists? Or the clerk, please.
So the list of bills to be reserved for a subject matter public hearing, I believe this was motioned to be called by voice vote. Thank you. That is proposed SB 151, an act establishing a full employment trust fund. Item 6, SB 489, an act limiting the days an employer can mandate an employee to work. Item number 7, SB 831, an act concerning amusement parks and the employment of individuals at least 14 years of age. Item number 8, HB 5033, an act concerning compensation of incarcerated individuals. Item number 9, HB 5464, an act concerning complaints against state and municipal employees. Item number 10, HB 5856, an act concerning state marshals' health benefits. Item number 11, HB 5859, an act concerning employment of individuals in agricultural labor. Item number 12, HB 6272, an act concerning workers' compensation, death benefits, and the cost of living and inflation rates. Item number 14, HB 6279, an act concerning reporting requirements of the Labor Department and the Unemployed Armed Forces Members Subsidized Training and Employment Program. And item number 16, HB 6362, an act concerning advanced energy companies and the workforce.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? The ayes have it.
I'm not sure if my voice vote was recorded because I was still having trouble unmuting, but I am an aye on that.
That is very tricky business. Yeah, you gotta do it right.
Thank you, Senator. Okay. We'll move on to House Bill 6275, an act concerning use of an employee's personal vehicle for employment purposes. Discussion. Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My main question when I read this title was whether or not this includes the employee's commute. But now I've got the language in front of me and it does in fact exclude such employees' commute to and from work. However, I still have some concerns about this particular proposal since, as was just mentioned on the previous bill, the employer-employee arrangement is worked out in advance and over time by the parties themselves. And I'm afraid that this might put an additional burden on both parties if we were to enact this proposal, because they might just have a simple agreement that says, you know, I might ask you to, you know, drop something off at the in an office, a town over or something once in a while. Would that be okay? Yes. But now we're going to require by statute that these things be itemized. And sure, it might end up resulting in a few extra dollars for that employee. But I don't think that will actually end up being the net result. The employer is going to have to incur additional expenses to do the bookkeeping and everything else, and probably will pass that on to their employee. I just don't see a net benefit. I think that this is something best left to an employment agreement. The reason why I had pulled it off the agendas was to ask the question about the commute. And so I'm less concerned about having a hearing on it based on the circumstances, although I'll be very upfront and suggest that I don't think I would find a way to support something that essentially interferes with that private employer employment agreement, as I've mentioned so many times. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Any further discussion?
I would make the motion. So moved, because we didn't do that.
Okay. I do not have a second. I have a motion from Rep. Hughes,
I'll second it.
seconded by Representative Wilson. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Next, we'll move on to House Bill 6367. An act concerning temporary employment agencies and individuals without social security numbers. I apologize. I skipped the bill head. Thank you for that, Representative and Senator. The next item we have is item 15, which is HB 6290. An act concerning state employees and equitable holidays.
So moved. Rep. Hughes.
So moved by Rep. Hughes,
I'll second it.
seconded by Rep. Wilson. Discussion? Representative Ackerd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the opportunity. And I just can't even imagine how, and I understand that people celebrate different holidays, and we have a substantial amount of holidays in the state of Connecticut that, our employees can take off. I just can't even grasp how a manager of a department manages, these potential, days off. Mainly because if they're scheduling and their office is closed on a state holiday, their office is actually closed. Department of Motor Vehicle, Department of Labor, they're closed. That person cannot replace that work on those days. So you would be, some departments, it may work out fine that they're just, doing, research or something that they can do on that day. But the people that actually serve the public, I can't understand how they could replace those days. So they're, a certain, day that they're closed at that department, the building's closed, like we've closed this building here. Our staff couldn't come in and perform work for our constituents, whatever it may be on those days. So I don't even know how this is, it is a manageable, and I'm thinking about the people that run the departments for the state of Connecticut. So that's my comments on this.
Thank you, Representative. Senator Kushner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do believe that this is now much more manageable as we've learned about remote work, and that there are many opportunities to give employees more flexibility. I know as someone who lived my life working or having to take a day off for a Jewish holiday, I know how frustrating that can be. So I think this is scheduled for a subject matter hearing because we want to get all these views on the record and see how we as a state can accommodate people who have different religions, holidays, or cultural days that are really important to them. So hopefully it can be, worked out, and we'll learn how to do that through the public hearing process. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Any further discussion? Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I guess reading through this bill, what happens is we would be trading one current state holiday, which is a paid day off, to state workers in exchange for 2 floating days paid off. So the net is that state employees would actually benefit by getting an additional paid day off and also being able to choose 2 days for what they would like to have off. So I don't know. I've got mixed feelings about this. There are plenty of very hardworking state employees that deserve a lot of benefit. But my understanding is that we already provide 45. I think I'm sorry. I was just corrected. 46 paid days off for state employees. That's far more than people in the public sector or the private sector tend to get. And I know that I'm receiving a lot of calls from constituents complaining that they're having difficulty getting responses from some of our state agencies. And I don't want to make a blanket statement, but there are certain state agencies that seem to have difficulty keeping up with the response to the people of Connecticut. I just don't think it's a time or place to be adding yet another paid day off. So I'm going to oppose this one, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Senator Kushner.
Thank you. My reading of this and in conversations with the proponents of the bill is that they were not proposing additional time off, but rather the ability to use 2 floating holidays to replace 2 existing holidays. And so I think that certainly is something we will want to clarify in the public hearing when we hear from the proponents. But I would urge committee members to vote for this because I think it really is our obligation to make sure that if there are ways to accommodate the cultural and religious diversity of our workforce, that we certainly want to try and accommodate that. And I think in this day and age, there's a lot more opportunity for flexibility than we've had in the past. So I would encourage people to vote for this, but I do have the understanding from the proponents that we are not, this bill would not create an additional holiday for state employees. And I understand that would be something that we would leave to the parties to negotiate as they do all the other paid time off. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion? Okay, if not, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
A roll call vote has been requested for item number 15, House Bill 6290, an act concerning state employees and equitable holidays. Senator Kushner,
Senator Kushner votes yes.
Representative Sanchez,
Representative Sanchez votes yes.
Representative Wilson,
Representative Wilson votes yes.
Senator Cabrera, Senator Sampson,
Senator Sampson votes no.
Representative Ackert,
Representative Ackert votes no.
Representative Hall, Representative Hughes,
Representative Hughes votes yes.
Senator Lesser, Representative Weir,
Representative Weir, no.
Representative Yakarino,
Representative Yakarino votes no.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We will now move on to House Bill 6367. An act concerning, Mike, I got that right? Okay. An act concerning temporary employment agencies and individuals without social security numbers. Discussion?
So moved.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And I'll second it.
Moved by Representative Hughes, seconded by Representative Wilson. Discussion. Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I asked that this one be pulled off our consentable items list just because I'm not really sure what we're doing here. It says chapter 557 of the general statutes be amended to allow individuals without social security numbers to obtain work through temporary employment agencies or temporary help services with an individual taxpayer ID number or an electronic transmitter ID number. I just want to understand what population are we referring to that does not have social security numbers? And are they eligible to work currently? And it's just something in our law that prevents temporary employment agencies from hiring them? Just a little more background would be appreciated, Mr. Chairman.
So the intent was to ensure, from the conversation that I had with the proponent of the bill, to allow folks to be able to work that do not have social security numbers. To the extent in which I can elaborate further, Senator, I think that I'd like to allow the proponent of the bill to make more comment. I think she would be better suited to truly address the nature of the bill in its entirety. Discussion. Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. Although, I mean, this bill does have language for the public hearing. And I will be very direct and say that my concern about this is that the only folks that I'm aware of in our society that do not have social security numbers and are not allowed to work are undocumented aliens. And if we're going to make a substantial change in policy like that, I just think that it ought to be much more clear that that's what we're doing. I don't know that that's what's here, but that seems to be the reaction. I've got folks in my district who looked at this agenda, saw this item, and that is immediately what they gleaned from it, is that if we're going to allow folks without social security numbers to be employed in Connecticut, that is a very significant policy change. So can we say for certain whether the intent of this proposed bill number 6367 is to allow undocumented aliens to work lawfully in Connecticut?
I defer to Senator Kushner.
Thank you. My reading of this, when there's a reference to ITIN numbers, persons who hold ITIN numbers are working lawfully in the United States. If you're a green card holder, for instance, you're here lawfully, you're applying for citizenship, you have a green card, you are issued an ITIN number. Under federal rules now, also, young people who were born in this country, who were born overseas but are of a young age, are considered eligible for ITIN numbers under the DACA rulings. So I don't believe this is a bill that is geared toward those who do not hold any legal ability to work. I think that there is most likely some kind of an issue for the temporary agencies that the proponent of the bill is trying to address. And I would be very interested in learning if there are barriers and obstacles that shouldn't be there for those persons who are legally working in our country with the ITIN number. So I'm anxious to hear this bill in a public hearing so we can ask those questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Discussion. Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Madam Chairman, for that response. I appreciate that thoroughly. I just wanted to make sure that we're getting at the right thing and that it's clear what we're after in the policy. What you said makes perfect sense. I have a lot of experience dealing with folks that have green card status and the steps that they have to go through to file paperwork and be working lawfully in the country. If there is such an obstacle working with a temp service, then we do have to fix that. That there's no question. I'm just surprised that it would have not been addressed already. So hopefully that's all that this item is. If there's any indication that it extends beyond that, I'm hoping the chairs do share that with me as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Any further discussion? Representative Acker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I know that in my area, in the farming area, we have a substantial migrant workforce out there that is necessary. And so I take it that they hold a number similar to what is stated on here that fits this legislation, I would imagine, that would help them in that area. Is that your understanding of the senator's understanding?
Senator Kushner.
That is my understanding. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We'd like to ask for a voice vote on this.
Motion.
Okay, all those in favor of HB 6367, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? You guys have it. The next item is HB 6462. Make sure I have it. Sure this is the correct one. Okay. An act concerning the recruitment of state costs attributable to low-wage employers.
So moved.
We have a
Seconded.
motion. Motion made by Senator Kushner, seconded by Representative Hughes. Discussion? Representative Weir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. So if I read the language correctly, we're identifying employees with 500, I'm sorry, companies with 500 or more employees pay a quarterly fee to the state if those employees are on Husky Health Program.
Representative, that is my understanding of it. Senator Kushner, do you have any remarks on this?
Sure. Excuse me. I have to clear my throat. Excuse me. Yes, I think this bill has come before the legislature in the past. I think there's concern that we have large, very profitable corporations that are paying their employees so low that they are actually qualifying for state assistance programs. And so basically, the state taxpayers are subsidizing large corporations that we know to be very profitable. So that bill has been heard in the past. I'm eager to hear it again. If that is a continuing practice, we should be aware of it and we should address it, because I don't think it's fair to taxpayers that we're making up the difference for these large corporations that are very profitable. So I'm anxious to hear in a subject matter hearing what the current status is of large corporations in our state and whether or not their employees are in fact on our Husky programs that we are state subsidizing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Weir.
And through you, Mr. Chairman. So I mean, we have wage laws set in place, minimum wage. And it looks to me that we're carving out companies that employ more than 500 employees and penalizing them for employing people who may not meet, who may need assistance, but they're actively working. It seems to me like that's a penalty for a large company.
Any further discussion? Representative Acker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is this just, how does our not-for-profits play in this? Is it they part of this also?
Currently, it's written, if I'm not mistaken, they are. There will need to be conversation just to address that matter. Is there any?
Thank you. And I guess we're going to hear in a public hearing, but is there a percentage of the employees? I mean, there's a lot that needs to be discussed, because if they have, a lot of employees and they've got 2 or 3 people on it, are they youth people that are being employed? Obviously not too many youth are receiving state benefit. Well, I guess they could be. Yeah, of course they could be receiving state benefits. So It seems like a cumbersome process here. You know, we have, you know, not the most favorable ratings by our large corporations in the state. And matter of fact, we're losing a staple corporation and that's leaving our wonderful area of Enfield to go to another state. And it's pretty much stated why they're leaving. It's because of the culture of how businesses are treated in the state of Connecticut. So I think this is just another one of those things that could be a negative for employers coming here. We want to attract employers here with good paying jobs. I get it. And that's what I would like to see. I'd like to see, you know, people make their way in life. But some of these people, obviously some of these corporations have jobs that do not pay a lot. And if they're, you know, can receive state benefits, then they're going to, you know, obviously pay more. They could be doing that in another state to sell their goods or build their products. So not supportive of this. I know I'll make it to a public hearing and I'll have my questions at that time too. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Any discussion? Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we were getting along so well in the committee today. It was moving along very much in a bipartisan fashion until we get to this near the end of the agenda. But I have to tell you, this bill I find offensive. That's probably the nicest thing I could say about it. I want to align my comments with Representative Ackert and Representative Weir, who spoke before me. This is just playing into the political class warfare nonsense that has left Connecticut in the position where we are, 49th in the list of business friendliness. You know, the companies that employ over 500 employees in the state of Connecticut are doing a service for the state of Connecticut by providing opportunities and jobs to the people that live here. The state of Connecticut determines the minimum wage. That's a whole debatable situation. But, you know, during that discussion, we were told that we were voting on a living wage, you know, so if somebody's making, I think it's $14 now, soon to be $15 in June, you know, I don't understand that somehow the businesses that are complying with what this legislature determined was a minimum wage now are suddenly being asked to pay a quarterly fee to the labor commissioner. And it says here in the bill that if they utilize state resources, and then it says including but not limited to the Husky Health Program. There are a tremendous amount of state resources we all use every day. I mean, even driving on a state road, I'm sure that, you know, Walmart, for example, which would be a 500 employee business in the state of Connecticut, I'm sure that they have their trucks traveling on state roads. Do we want to charge them specifically for that purpose? I just don't understand this. If we want to live in a state that has job opportunities and chances for advancement for our citizens, we have got to stop playing this game of class warfare and attacking employers. You know, I serve on the housing committee also, and over there the policies are there attacking housing providers while complaining that there's a shortage of housing. You can't do that. If you want more housing, you have to encourage housing providers. And if you want better paying jobs and more opportunities in the state, then you have to invite employers into Connecticut. You can't keep proposing bills that send a red flag, a signal to employers in the state. You might want to get out of here or never come to begin with. It's bad. Everyone knows it. I can't support this, Mr. Chairman, and there's no amount of tweaking the around the edges that are going to make it okay to put an additional requirement on somebody just because they are offering employment in our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any further discussion? Representative Yakarino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to really piggyback off Ranking Member Ackert. Our nonprofits are going to get crushed with this. Many of them have 500 employees throughout the state. I met with some of them today and downstairs in the lobby. They've gotten cut year after year from this building, and they've gotten cut again potentially this year. Some of them are looking for up to $30 to $50 million when we're potentially going to penalize them even further. So I think we should be very cautious. Besides the business aspect, our nonprofits, I think I just cannot support this mainly because of that. It makes no sense. Thank you.
Any further discussion? I did want to respond. I do know that there will be work to address the the nonprofit aspect of what we are seeing before us. So I just wanted to make that clear that there will be work that will be done to ensure that that moves forward. Any further discussion? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
A roll call vote has been requested on agenda item 18. Proposed House Bill number 6462, an act concerning the recoupment of state cost attributable to low-wage employers. Senator Kushner,
Senator Kushner votes yes.
Representative Sanchez,
Representative Sanchez votes yes.
Representative Wilson,
Representative Wilson votes yes.
Senator Cabrera, Senator Sampson,
Senator Sampson votes no.
Representative Ackert,
Representative Ackert votes no.
Representative Hall,
Representative Hall votes yes.
Representative Hughes,
Representative Hughes votes yes.
Senator Lesser, Representative Weir,
Representative Weir, no.
Representative Yakarino.
Representative Yakarino, no.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We'll move forward to bills to be considered for change of reference. At this time, I'd like to move to item 5 on the agenda. There's one bill for us to be reserved for a subject matter hearing. I'd like to entertain a motion to refer item 19 on the agenda to the Committee on Education,
So moved.
Seconded.
moved by Representative Ackert, seconded by Representative Hughes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Okay. So the next item, announcement of the date and time of the next meeting. The next item on today's agenda, is the time and date of our next meeting. There will be a public hearing on February 7th in room 2D and a committee meeting on February 9th in 2B, both starting at 10 a.m. So, okay, we will keep votes open for an hour and we'll go into recess.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Hello, Representative Hall. Hello, Representative Hall.
Yep, can you hear me?
I believe you missed the first roll call vote. That would be House Bill 6290. Would you like me to read the title for you?
Hold on just a second for me, please. If you have a second. I'm just trying to pull up the, my computer shut down for a second. I'm just trying to pull up the agenda again. Okay.
I think I've got you on my person on the Zoom now, Representative Hall.
Yes.
So this would be House Bill 6290, Act concerning state employees and equitable holidays.
You said 6290.
Item 15 on the agenda, yes.
Gotcha. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Sounds good. Take care.
You as well.
Hey, Cameron.
Hello, Senator Luther. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing all right. So there were two roll call votes. I'll
Okay.
leave it here right now. We had item number 15, HB 6290, an act concerning state employees and equitable holidays.
I vote in the affirmative.
In the affirmative. And the second one is item number 18 on the agenda, House Bill 6462, an act concerning the recoupment of state costs attributable to low-wage employers.
I vote in the affirmative.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you.
Hello, Senator Cabrera.
How are you?
I'm doing all right yourself. Let's see here. So we have two roll call votes out from Labor. The first was item 15 on the agenda, House Bill 6290. That is an act concerning state employees and equitable holidays.
Senator Cabrera votes yes.
And the second one is item number 18, House Bill 6462, an act concerning the recoupment of state costs attributable to low-wage employers.
Senator Cabrera votes yes.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you. Appreciate it.